model design, built this business. Hey, it's Lisa from LisaRobbin.com back with session 3, day 1 of our 3-day growth planning workshop, a celebration of the launch, the pre-launch, the pre-order of my new book, Creative Freedom: How to Own Your Dreams Without Selling Your Soul, a guide to personal and financial success as a creative entrepreneur. So I'm really excited that you're here with me. We have spent the morning and most of the afternoon thus far defining success on your own terms. First, from the very personal, the 5 key areas of success, then into the more financial, tactical of how do we translate that into the finances of our business, like how do we find that income goal that really works for us. So in our last session, you worked on creating an enoughness number, right? What's the number that's going to be enough for you to have, experience the things that are going to work for you? And so this session, we're going to dig into the enoughness number in more detail and talk about the interim enoughness number. And I'm going to give you the overview of the 4 pillars of business model design. If we have time in this session, we will start to dig into the first 2 pillars, which are both you focused. And I'll talk more about that when we get there. In the meantime, we're going to jump in and talk about the whole enoughness number concept. Now, in the last session, I talked about how that number needs to be big enough to contain all the stuff. And I fully recognize that that number may feel like an insurmountable, giant obstacle on your horizon that you're never even going to get to. It's out there and it's taunting you. So what we want to do in this session is come to terms on the interim enoughness number. And I'm going to spend a good deal of time talking about the mindset versus the mechanics of this business building construct as a creative entrepreneur. I sat down with Dr. George Huang, who is a coach. He was actually an MD before he started working as a business advisor. And one of the theories, the working theories that I had was that it's so much harder for an entrepreneur to go from 0 to $5,000 a month in business income than it is for them to go from 5 to 10. The leap is so much easier. But why? Like, what really is going on there? Is it really a function of, well, they just got the systems in place that they didn't have in place before? Or is there something else at play? And so George and I sat down and talked. And the thing that he said that really drove the point home was the mindset versus the mechanics. In our mind, when we're nowhere near $10,000 a month, $5,000 can feel like a breath of fresh air or another insurmountable mountain that we have to get to and we're not even there yet, right? And so the money stories that we're telling ourselves, those things that I had you write down as they started popping up, they wreak havoc on the work that we're trying to do. We know the steps we need to take. We know we need to create the plan. We know we need to find our market. We know we need to, step, 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 step. The problem comes that the stuff going on between our ears slows us down. It makes us not take the steps we know we need to take because fear is at play. And so you may have heard the phrase, fear is false evidence appearing real. Like we think something's there that's not really there, and so then we're afraid. That doesn't help me move forward. That doesn't help you move forward. Yeah, I know it's not real, but I'm still stuck here, right? So one of the things that I do, along with my concept of dumb goals, is I like to take the things that are sticking us and use them to our advantage. So instead of false evidence appearing real, let's freeze everything, because we're doing that already, and reframe, right? So if you've got a fear that says, how can I raise my prices when people already aren't paying me that much money? Then we reframe that to, well, if they're not going to pay you this much, why not raise your prices? Because then they're still not going to pay you, but at least you're going to be asking for what you truly value. And what ends up happening is, more times than not, people will pay you. People will pay you because you've showed up and owned that space. I was maybe a month here in Nashville. So this was last year about this time. I was in a jewelry store and I was looking at this beautiful, beautiful necklace, which I ended up buying. And the owner of the shop was telling me about her pieces. And she said, you know, I regularly go through the store and just raise the prices on everything. And I said, even if they don't sell? And she said, well, I have warehousing costs. It costs me money to keep it sitting here. Why not raise the price? Besides, if it's not going to sell for this much, I might as well raise the price and have it not sell at that price because eventually somebody's going to buy it. And that mindset shift of, I know I have what people want, I just have to wait for the right people to show up to buy it. And in the meantime, I'm going to keep moving my pricing. That was a powerful reframe for me. So when we're looking at what does it take to get from where we are to this seemingly heavy, giant, lofty enoughness number, our own brains can keep us from going there, keep us from even taking the first step to go there, because we're looking at what we have right now. And this is safe. And this is comfortable. And I know what to expect right here. But beyond these confines, that's scary. And here's the thing. If I'm sitting here looking right here, I can't see all the people over here who may be going, hey, hello, ooh, we're here. I'm like, I want to buy. I've got money. Like, please help me. So we need to, as entrepreneurs, be willing to take the blinders off and open up our field of view to other possibilities. That's willingness, okay? That doesn't mean you're going to drop everything and totally shift your market. I did that once. It was not a good idea. My business really suffered because of it. And at the same time, being open to new possibilities did take me eventually in a direction that was much more helpful for not only me, but the creative entrepreneurs that I was ultimately meant to serve. When I started my coaching and consulting practice almost 10 years ago now, I was working almost exclusively with direct sellers. I love direct sellers. I love helping direct sellers. And after about 2 years of working with them, I got clear that something else was calling to me. Some other people started showing up on my radar and I didn't know how to serve them and still stay true to this audience. So not being with it and together and savvy about these things, I just backed off and said, I'm going to serve all these people and I'm going to move in this direction. So that audience that I had cultivated was like, hey, what about me? What about us? And they went, some of them went elsewhere to people who were speaking their language and serving them. And in the meantime, my business kind of did one of these. But in making that shift and asking the questions, I discovered this creative entrepreneur spectrum. I discovered what became the foundation of Creative Freedom the book, Creative Freedom the show, Creative Freedom this workshop, and all the things that I'm set to do, not only for the rest of this year, but into 2018 and beyond. I really see this as a platform that's going to carry me for at least the next 5 years in my life and in my work because of the discoveries that I've made. But if I hadn't been willing to take the blinders off and look and see what there was to see, I never would have gotten there. I would have stayed stuck, unhappy, knowing that there was something else out there for me and not being able to fully serve it. So we as entrepreneurs, our mindsets have to be open, willing to be open. But let me show you the difference between willing and just open, okay? This is me holding tight to the thing that I know to be true, the stories that I've been told, the life that I've been living. This is my truth, rah, okay? Well, if I'm open, I let go of everything and I have nothing, okay? That can be very upsetting, very confusing, very disempowering. On the other hand, if I keep clinging, nothing new can get in. I'm stuck, right? So we have to shift to willingness. Willingness says, you know, I've got something here and it's working for me. I'm going to hang on to it. And I'm open to the idea that it might go away and something new might come into play. I'm also open to the idea that I can have both at the same time. This is the concept of also and versus either or, all or nothing. That's the first piece of your mindset shift that as a creative entrepreneur, we really need to experiment with and explore into. For chaotic creatives, it's really easy to go with the flow and be open. But what happens is we drop the ball, and then we're stuck wondering what's next, what's going to happen, where are we going? Instead of, this is what I have, this is what I'm working for, and I'm willing to see what else might be available as I carry this into the world. Linears are like, this is what I've got, this is where I'm going, this is what I'm doing. And when they can learn to be open, they can say, this is what I've got, this is where I'm going, and if something else comes along that helps me move forward, great, and if not, then I'm going to make a conscious decision, an intentional decision about where I want to go, where I want to be, what I'm trying to do in the world. Helena is here with us. Hello, Helena. Welcome. So excited to have you still here. Hopefully this is still helpful for you because I know you were at the workshop, and so hopefully this isn't all repetition for you. But at the same time, you guys, when we're talking about this process of opening our mindset, okay, because this is the piece you've got to get with, it still has to come under the context of I matter, you matter, we matter, okay? Helena says, I can take a double dose of your wisdom. All right, and Judy's here. Hey, Judy in Atlanta. Hope things are going well for you today. So this construct, this mindset that says also and, instead of either or. I can either be successful and sell myself out, or I can stay true to my values and be a starving artist and be broke all the time. It doesn't have to be that way. And that mindset practice, that mindset shifting is where we do a lot of the work in the early stages of our business development. Because we have to. And by the time we've hit $5,000, we've seen, wow, all of that old stuff really didn't serve me. We now have new body memories. We now have new awarenesses. We've practiced dropping the judgment more. And now we can go, you know what? I remember what it was like the last time I tried to raise my prices and all the fear and all the stuff that was coming up for me. And I'm feeling that again. And I remember what happened the last time. So I'm going to follow through. So 0 to 5K a month is really this practice ground of working out the mindset stuff. And one of the reasons some people move faster through it than others is because they deal with the mindset stuff faster. I have a client that I worked with for over a year before she brought in any revenue because she had a lot of worthiness issues she had to deal with. She had a lot of just getting off the stick that she had to deal with. She had a lot of worthiness, willingness that she had to deal with. She had to open her hand. And she was sitting there going, no, this is my truth. This is the truth that I've been told since I was a kid. This is the reality of everything around me. And I know it doesn't work for me, but this is truth. And I had to pry her little fingers open and get them to stay open long enough for her to accept the idea that there might be another way. Not that there is another way or a right way, but there might be something else that allows her, here's your truth, here's the thing you've been carrying with you, and maybe there's something else that could come in here and show this truth that it's not as true as you thought it was. I'm not trying to undermine you, I'm trying to open your blinders, right? And then over time, what happens? We get new experiences that go, all that stuff I thought was true, it ain't true. It ain't even close to true, right? But you can't just pile drive your way through that. You actually have to do the work. That's why there are therapeutic professionals who are excellent at what they do. They do that work. They help people work their way through that stuff, right? They're the guides on that journey. We need to do that work or we can't grow, and we stay stuck with, I know I should be making more money, but I can't bring myself to charge more. I know I'm better than that guy over there. I've got 20 years of experience more than that guy over there, but they're charging more because I just don't feel like I'm worthy of charging more, even though I know I'm better than they are. Because of the stories that we're telling ourselves, and we haven't done the work to say, yes, I know this is the truth I've lived with, And I'm willing to be open to the idea that there might be another truth that's more empowering for me. So the mindset over the mechanics. Because I can teach you how to do stuff. That's easy, comparatively. But the doing of the stuff is where you're going to hit your walls. And that's why I say, we can fill out the pages, we can make a growth plan, but if it just sits on a shelf for the next 12 months, you've done all that work for nothing. And you haven't done the real work of executing on the plan. So, as we look at that enoughness number, I want you to be able to open yourself up to the possibility that, yeah, that's really big, and I can hold that as true for me and work towards a stepping stone, right? So, let's talk about the file clerk in your head. I've done blog posts on this. I think I've talked about it in videos. You can find it all over my website. The file clerk in your head holds no judgment. The file clerk's only job is to put the data in the proper folder. So you have an experience. You sing on a stage at karaoke, okay? And at the end of the night, you have friends who are like, oh my God, that was amazing. You're such a phenomenal singer. I could never do that. That was awesome. And you're like, yes. And you go to the file clerk in your head and you go, put this in the file folder that says, I can sing. And I sing really well. Okay. File clerk goes and puts it in the file folder and goes on about his business. Next time you go and you sing and everybody's like, oh yeah, that's awesome. Woo, I love that song. You're amazing. Yes. You go back to the file clerk. File this in the folder that says I can sing. Okay. And he goes and files it. The next time you have another experience and this time someone's like, you were a little pitchy. Kind of didn't do it for me. Oh, okay. And you go to the file clerk and go, put this in the file folder that says I'm a horrible singer and I should never get on a stage. And the file clerk goes, okay, and goes and puts it in that file folder. Now this happens and you get 5 or 6 really great experiences for every one bad experience that you have. And one day you have the opportunity to audition for a national TV show and you're like, I wonder if I should do this. I don't know. Let me go to the file clerk in my head and figure this out. File clerk, yes. Bring me the folders that say I'm an amazing singer and I'm an awful singer. Okay. And he goes and he grabs the file folders. And you got one file folder that says, I'm an amazing singer, it's awesome, I'm great. And one that says, I can't sing, or the hill of beans. Well, this folder's bigger than this folder. There's more evidence in this folder to suggest you're a pretty good singer, and you should probably think about auditioning for that show. But if the folders were flip-flopped, and you had a big folder of evidence that said I'm a horrible singer, I should never be on a stage, every time I go out in public, I'm an embarrassment, the last thing you want to do is go audition for a national television show. Doesn't matter how good you are, right? This is how the Susan Boyles of the world come to be. She was not thought of as much of anything by anybody until one day she decided she was going to go ahead and give this a try, and her voice just blew the world away. I mean, you watch her audition video and everybody's like, okay, this old lady's going to sing swell. Like, nobody gave her credit. And then she opened her mouth and they were all like, well, I guess we were wrong. But something had to change in Susan's mind that gave her the courage to step up and do the work. She had to shift the file folders and go, yep, I see that it says I really probably shouldn't go out in public and do this stuff. And I'm going to try anyways. What's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to hit the buzzer and tell me I got to go home? I was going to be home anyway, right? Opening yourself up to the possibility of willingness. The best way to do that, the easiest way to do that, is also the hardest way to do that. And that is to create experiences that give you the opportunity to create new evidence. The easier way is to take your old experiences and write new stories. Okay? Remember, freeze everything and reframe. So all those old stories that weren't empowering, you could rewrite them. But for most people, the easier way to do it is to just have new experiences and take them to the file clerk and say, put them in the empowering folder instead of the disempowering folder. You know, today I have $6 in the bank and it's not enough to pay the bills. Oh my God, I'm such a horrible money manager. Oh geez, what am I doing? I shouldn't be in business. Ugh. It goes in that file folder. Or, yeah, I have $6 and I'm doing the best that I can with what I have, and I'm learning more every day, and I'm becoming a more confident, professional, proficient business owner. Okay. File clerk doesn't discriminate. File clerk doesn't judge. You're the one that's doing all the judging. So you have to open your hand, and you have to give yourself permission to go, this is what I really want, and this is what it's really going to take to make it happen. And that feels really big for me right now. So let's come to something that's more doable, more understandable, more meaningful, and more believable for me. And this is where we start to talk about dumb goals. Dumb, D-U-M-B, doable. Can you do it? Can it be done? Has it ever been done? Yes, cool. Understandable. Do you understand what you're trying to accomplish? Yes, this is my enoughness number, and it's ginormous, and I need something that bridges the gap. Okay, I understand that. Is it meaningful for you? Here's where things start to get tricky with meaningful and believable. Yes, it would be really meaningful to me to have that kind of money in this moment. Okay, is it believable? Oh no, I do not believe even a tiny little bit that I'm going to be able to make that happen. All right, so let's shrink the field till we get to a place that feels meaningful and believable. And it's a lot easier to shrink it to something that's meaningful than it is to something that's believable. In fact, one of the attendees at our workshop had that epiphany. She set a number for herself. That was her enoughness number. And in the process of creating the enoughness number, she realized that was way too big for her. So she shrunk it. I think she cut it in half. And she said, this is going to be my goal for the next 12 months. That's going to be my interim enoughness number. Mathematically, made perfect sense. But then when I sat down with her in a session after the workshop and I said, so where are you at with that number? She's like, oh yeah, it still feels too unbelievable to me. Okay, then that's not your number. That's not your number. Like, I can say make $5,000 your interim enoughness number, $5,000 a month, make $60,000 your interim enoughness number, but just because I say it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. I truly believe that every creative entrepreneur needs to get somewhere near six figures, either at it or beyond it. But if you're looking for the six-figure lifestyle, you may not need that much. You need to be clear on your definitions and what works for you. And Kara is here. Hello, Nevada. I hope things are well for you. And as we are working on building that number, if you hit a wall and you're like, I know this number is smaller than my enoughness number and it still feels too big, right size it until it feels right for you. And what we ended up doing with this particular client was scaling back the number even lower to about $1,000 a month just because of where she was at and all the other things she had going on in her life. And I said, well, how does this feel for you? Like, our bodies give us all kinds of signals if we're willing to pay attention. You know, if $5,000 a month feels like this, oh my God, I can't. That's not a healthy number for you to be trying for. You know, if 120,000 is like, dear God, the world's going to fall on me, that's not a healthy number for you. But if $1,000 a month is like, wow, I know it's nowhere near where I need to be, and imagine how much spaciousness it would give me to be able to just get there. And yeah, it feels like a stretch, and it feels like I could really do this. Like, it's doable. I know people who've done it. It's understandable. It's clear. $1,000 a month is really easy to understand. It's meaningful to me. It's not like, well, I'll just make $50. $50 isn't going to make a difference one way or another. No, this is a meaningful number. And it's still got some stretch in it for her. Okay? And it's believable. I believe this is possible if I do the work and I show up consistently and I have the supports that I need to make that happen. If she was going to have to fly completely solo on this, that might still be a huge number for her. That's okay. It's what matters to her. It's what's true for her. And I would apply that to you. What's true for you? As you're looking at your enoughness number, and you're sitting with the reality of, I probably can't do that in a year, and that's very feasible for some people, okay? If I can't do that in a year, what could I do? What could I do if I stretched myself? Not if I pushed myself to the breaking point, because that's the hamster wheel of hustle, and we're not going to live there, okay? But what would be my stretch number that I could really work with? That if I got close to that, or if I exceeded it, it would really fill me up. I would feel that lightness, that spaciousness, that joy, then there's your interim enoughness number. As much as I want it to be $5,000 a month, who cares? What do you need it to be? That's the number that you're going for over the next 12 months. Now, if you are one of those very fortunate people who can be like, that's my number and I'm going for it, far be it for me to argue with you. You don't need an interim number. You go for that number and you go with con mucho gusto, right? That's what works and what's true for you. But if you're like, oh, well, I just saw my friend and they're going to go for that, so I should go for that too. Wrong answer. Wrong answer. You have to go with what's true for and works for you. So you've created an enoughness number. You've right-sized it to what your interim enoughness number is going to be for the year. Okay, and knowing that that's what you're moving towards. Once you have that number, you have to start looking at how you're going to fit all of this stuff into the business that you're trying to create. How is the business going to support you to have that? How is the business going to help you bring that into your life as a creative entrepreneur? So this is where we get into the 4 pillars, my beautiful artistic nature, the 4 pillars of business model design. I'm going to give you an overview, and then I think we're going to maybe take a break. We'll see where we're at. I'll give you an overview of the 4 pillars, and then we're going to spend the rest of the afternoon going into each of those pillars so that you have real clarity by the end of the day on all of the internal foundational elements that are going to help drive your growth plan that we're going to start digging into tomorrow. So here are the 4 pillars of business model design. Okay, it is the context, your personal context, your creative entrepreneur type, okay, the life cycle of your business, and your business model. Now, as you look at this, you will see there are 2 personally driven elements, 2 personally driven pillars of your business model design, and there are 2 business-related pillars. This is the internal work of your personal self. This is the external show of yourself. This is the internal construct of your business. This is how it shows up externally in the world. Okay? So those are the 4 pillars of business model design. And the framework that we're going to talk about is going to support that. And it looks like we have enough time. I'm going to jump into the first pillar right now because you've already done a good bit of this work already. If you've been with us at all today, you have been looking very closely at, I got to get my notes up here, you've been looking very closely at the personal elements of your life, how you show up in the world, and how that all affects and impacts your business and the world that you're showing up in, right? That's the foundational piece. So you've already done a good bit of this work in terms of context. The definitions of success that are personal to you. The enoughness number that's personal to you. All of this stuff has been about you. Remember, I matter, you matter, we matter. We got to take care of this first before we can even start to deal with business constructs. Okay? Before we can apply it to the business, we got to make sure it applies to you, the person. So we've done a lot of definitions. But what are the other parameters that are going on in your world that need consideration? One of the things that we're going to do as we start to plot out your actual calendar for the growth plan is you're going to take all the stuff for the next year that you already know is happening and you're going to put it into your plan. Because we're going to build the business around you, not speckle yourself in around the cracks of your business. So if you have vacations that are coming up, doctor appointments that you know about, field trips with your kids, anything that's a regular or recurring commitment that you know about, that's part of your context. I have date night with my husband once a month. That's part of your context. You're not going to build your business in a way that's going to deny you the ability to go have date night with your husband once a month. Okay? So we need to know, what are the other parameters? Are you dealing with a chronic health illness? Some of my clients have chronic illnesses that do not allow them to work outside of the home. if that's the case, that's a piece of your context that's very important to dictating how you can show up successfully in your business. If you have family concerns that are very important to you, I had a client for several years, her number one goal was having a happy family. Everything else took a back seat to her definition of a happy family. Well, she was also an author and a speaker. And if her definition of healthy, happy family was, I'm going to be home with my family every night, she was not going to be traveling to California from Michigan to do speaking gigs because she wasn't going to be home at the end of the night. So that was a constraint on how she could define success. I like to say success is a destination and you're already there. And this is why. Because you've already created the conditions for which you can be successful right now today. And you have the choice, the decisions that you can make to change those constructs, to change those parameters, to change the rules of the game, if you will, so that you can be a different kind of successful tomorrow. But you're always already a success because you're the sum total of everything that you've done to this moment. And then some, I like to think, right? So, what are the other parameters for your personal context that you need to consider in building your business? Do you have a day job? Oh, a lot of us don't want to talk about having a bridge job or a day job or a side gig or something like that because we're creative entrepreneurs, man. Like, our creative thing, that's our thing, and anything else is shameful or humiliating, or I can't believe you have a day job and you can't just do this full time. That's crap. That's a big fat pile of BS because most of us start doing this thing that we love because we love it, not because we want to make a career out of it or build a business out of it. So we're all doing something else before we come to this thing. Well, I shouldn't say all, but most of us. So we have to make a transition. And if part of your transition is, I still have a day job and I work 45 hours a week plus travel time, so I really only have 5 hours a week to give to growing my business, well then we got to maximize the hell out of the 5 hours that you have every week. And you have to realize that your success is going to come at a much slower pace than somebody else who has 50 hours a week to put into growing their business. And you have to be able to own that with ruthless honesty. It's not good. It's not bad. It just is. I have 5 hours. I can be like, oh my God, I only have 5 and I'm going to be miserable and broke for the rest of my life working this day job that's killing me. Ah. Or, I have 5 hours. How can I make the best use of these 5 hours? And I know that other people have more. And they're probably going to pass me up. But this is what I have. And if I'm doing the best with what I have, then I can't do anything else. All I can do is the best that I can do. And that's what I'm going to focus on. I'm not going to be a chaotic who's focused on comparing myself to other people. I'm not going to be that fusion who compares myself. Why am I not where they are? Your constraints are different. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Your success story is your success story. And you have to be willing to own that. And there are different personal and professional demands on being a creative solopreneur. If you've got a team that can support you and help you grow, even if it's just a team of 1, or it's a babysitter, or it's a housekeeper, or a bookkeeper, like that gives you different constraints. The idea here is to paint the fullest picture of your situation so that you know what your constraints are for growth. That is what we're talking about right now in this first pillar of 360-degree business model design, right? We need to look at the context, the entire context. Are you going through a divorce? I was going through a divorce for the last year. And that created a context and a set of constraints that meant this summer I'm going to have full responsibility for my kids. I need to set up my work so that I can do that. It meant not being on Facebook nearly as much, not recording videos because I didn't know where I was going to be. So I was doing Facebook Lives and I was on Instagram. That was an intentional choice for me to still show up authentically and maintain some brand presence in a way that worked with the constraints that I had on my time. Now, the neat thing about that is it opened up a whole new world for me in doing Facebook Lives, right? I get to see you guys and interact with you guys in real time, something I've never done before. But I wouldn't have done it at all if my constraints hadn't kind of forced me down that path. And even though it was forcing me, I still made the choice. I want to make sure that we make that point abundantly clear. I had a choice. I made a choice. And you have that same ability to make a choice too. So, if you have any questions on that, pop them in the chat, shoot me a private message. I love to answer the questions that are coming up for you guys. That's part of why we're doing this live, so that you guys can get real insights into what's going to apply to your unique situation, because we are all different. The principles and the frameworks are the same and they're kind of universal, but they still need to be tweaked sometimes to fit your particular business model. One of the examples I like to use is a jungle gym. You know, one of those dome-shaped, made with bars, looks like an igloo made out of metal bars. That structure is just enough to allow you to have a lot of creativity, a lot of freedom. It can be a jail, it can be an igloo, it can be a hut, it can be an office, it can be an animal hospital. You can walk on the top of it, you can swing from the bars, you can climb around on it. You have a lot of ability to be creative inside that framework. And yet, if it was made out of wet spaghetti noodles, it would fall in on itself, there wouldn't be enough structure, you couldn't really do anything with it except have a big old mess. So, frameworks and structures help us define the parameters, the constraints around which we're working. And then we get to come in with our creativity. We are creative entrepreneurs after all. And we get to make the decisions about how we're going to use this for ourselves. And remember, I matter, you matter, we matter. I got to take care of this first. Then I can go out to the world and say, here's what I need, here's what I'm offering. Who wants this? Who's ready for this? Who needs this? Okay? But we got to deal with this first. And that's what we're spending almost all of today on. Okay? So that's the first pillar of business model design. And I want you to spend the next 45-ish, 40 minutes or so. We're going to pick back up at 4 o'clock. And we'll talk about pillar number 2. And that's your creative entrepreneur type. And I can talk about that a lot. That's why I've saved it for the last session for the day so that I don't go down a rabbit hole. But what I want you to do right now is, as we break, take a look at the different constraints around your personal and professional life. What are the things that are prevalent and real about your situation that may be unique to you that you have to take into account in order to be able to show up and do your work? If it's a chronic illness, or if it's a loved one with a chronic illness, or you're caring for a child or an elderly parent, or you've got lots of travel on your calendar for next year, or you know, whatever you already know is out there for you to contend with, that's a part of your being for the next 12 months, you need to take that into account. So spend the next, not quite an hour, going through all of that stuff and getting clear on, oh my gosh, we're taking a trip to Costa Rica and I got to do this. Oh my gosh, we're going to do that and I need to make sure that this is handled before that. Get all of those constraints out of your head and get them on paper in your notebook so that you know what you're really dealing with and how much time you really have available to do the work to grow your business. This is about right-sizing your expectations and knowing what you really can and can't handle in the next 12 months and beyond. Again, it's not a judgment. It's the truth. It's ruthlessly honest. It's letting go of the judgment and owning, this is what's true for me. And it might not be true for you, and it might not be true for you, and it might not be true for anybody else in the world, but this is something I have to deal with if I'm going to make my business successful and grow. Okay? So spend the next little bit working on that. Make sure you get up and move around. Remember, looking at a screen for an hour at a time can be really taxing on your body. Don't sit all day long. Every time we close, I get up, I go do something. I put 200 steps on the stair machine, or I fold some laundry or something so that I'm not popped in this spot the whole time. That's an important part of this process too. As you get up and move around, things process in your body, believe it or not. So do that work. Do all the work, because it's going to help you be a different person by the end of our time together. So I'm not seeing any questions. We're going to go ahead and close this session, and we will pop back in 4 o'clock Central. So that's 50 minutes from now. And until then, this is Lisa Robbin Young signing off in blessings and peace. I'll see you in the last session today.